Welcome to Ephesians chapter 5 of our Bible study, Dig into Ephesians. We're on the second half of the book of Ephesians. In the first half, chapters 1, 2, and 3, talked about the witness of Christ in our lives, His great love for us. And now in the second half, Paul is showing us how this incredible witness should lead us to a walk, a transformed life that is transformed by this great knowledge of the love of God for each and every one of us. Chapter 4, we looked at the unity of the body, how we should be unified, and dealing with conflict. Now in chapter 5, we're going to be looking at the Spirit-filled life and what that looks like. When we think about being filled, different thoughts might come to your mind. Here in our culture, you might think about filling your gas tank when it gets empty, or going to the restaurant and filling your cup from the fountain, and then going back for refills once your cup gets empty. But that's not quite how I want to look at it today in this chapter. It's not so much about the quantity and more about the quality. It's more about that the Holy Spirit gets more and more of you. I am sitting here in my car today basically for an illustration. Many of you probably, like myself, spend a lot of time in your car, maybe commuting back and forth to work and going places. And from time to time, we see people that are filled with anger. We call it road rage these days. And it's just that they get so angry, they get filled with anger, that their anger actually controls or influences the way they speak and their actions, because they let their anger just begin to control them. And we see that in other areas. We see particularly in the area of lust, which is a terrible problem in our day and age, that people get filled with lust and they let it control their actions. It destroys their relationships. You see that with areas of addiction, where people just get so filled with desire for a artificial high and substance that they let it control their lives. And those are all negative ideas. But here we're looking at being filled with the Spirit. And in a positive way, it's letting God so fill your life that He influences your life, that you are so filled with God that you are influenced by His Word and by His wisdom and by His righteousness, and that it is evident for everyone to see in your life. It's evident in the way you speak, that you begin to speak with others. Here in chapter 5, he says that you speak to one another with psalms, hymns, and spiritual songs. And it's just the idea that you are lifting up, you are encouraging one another in God's ways, speaking about the Lord, encouraging others in the Lord. It changes your attitude. When you're filled with the Spirit, you have this attitude of thanksgiving in all situations, giving thanks to God. And we see this in Paul's life, no matter what he was going through, being able to thank God for those things. That changes your actions. And you begin, the way you treat people will change when you're filled with the Spirit. You begin to think of yourself as subject to one another, submitting to one another, loving others like Christ loved the church. And this is all part of Ephesians 5. So I want to encourage you now to just dig in to Ephesians chapter 5. And thank you for joining us as we dig deep into Ephesians.